this right now to be happy. Hi everyone, let's dive into today. I just listened to a podcast that has me a little fired up. We're going to unpack why this advice might not always be good. Well, this one completely misses the mark, to be honest. And the host asks him, "Are you happy?" And the Harvard guy couldn't even answer. He says, "Oh, I can't measure that." Honestly, it's frustrating because you can tell that the host isn't just casually asking. I kind of can feel her desperation. She's seeking answers herself. So she pushes again and she says, "How do you help someone who has never had happiness know what it is?" Especially when you say you are a happy master and you don't know what happy is. And here's where things take a turn. The Harvard pro says, well, we experiment with different truths and we start small and we find what makes you 1% happier. And if that works, you do more of that. And if not, you move to another truth. Here's where the whole idea breaks down. The advice was to prioritize things that make you happy. Sure sounds nice, but think about it. What does that even mean? Prioritize your own happiness. Do more of what makes you feel good. Do we hear ourselves me, 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 me? I mean, this kind of thinking that keeps so many people stuck. Your own truth and find what makes you happy. Joy is not found in chasing what makes you happy. Happiness is fleeting. It's circumstantial. It's based on how you feel in a moment. And honestly, if you're chasing what makes you happy, you will spend your whole time running in circles. But here's the thing, it's dangerous because it makes so much sense based on the advice we're giving today. But the two problems are find your truth. Okay, if we all have different truths, well, then that's just a mess. Find your truth, and if that works, keep doing it. Okay, thank you. And there's only one truth. And the other one is do what makes you happy, me happy, whatever makes me happy, whatever makes me happy. That's kind of like my kryptonite and probably the worst line in the human language. If we want to be fulfilled, we have to have a heart that wants to love, give, and serve. Given it will be given unto you. We need to stop focusing on what makes me feel good. It's not about doing what makes you happy. It's about doing what makes you fulfilled. And that fulfillment, it doesn't come from looking inward. It comes from looking outward. So here's where this whole idea breaks down. The advice was to prioritize your own happiness. And honestly, if you're chasing what makes you happy, you'll spend your entire life running in circles. It's dangerous because it makes so much worldly sense to the human spirit that doesn't know any better, and especially that's listening to some Harvard Zen expert on happiness. What gifts do you have that help others? That's what's going to fulfill you and make you happy. Getting lost in the service of others. The opposite of what he says. So here's where the world gets it wrong. We weren't created to focus on ourselves. We find deeper purpose and connection when we focus on serving others. That's where true joy and fulfillment come from. And God promises that when we pour out love, kindness, and service, it will come back to us overflowing. Think about it. Have you ever done something small for someone and felt a burst of joy that you could not explain? Maybe it was, I don't know, paying for someone's coffee or just leaving a kind note, opening a door, helping a friend who needed encouragement. How about that feeling? That's fulfillment. That's happiness that God talks about. God says it's better to give than to receive. So for 1 week, live in the world like the Harvard Zen suggests. Prioritize yourself, me, me, me. Focus on happiness, things that make me happy. Do the things that you enjoy. Treat yourself. Make everything about you, your own joy. Pay attention to how you feel at the end of the week. Second week, let's flip the script. We're going to go from worldly and now we're going to go to godly wisdom. Let's surrender your needs and make it about others. Let's imagine every person you meet has a sign around their neck that says, make me feel good about myself. Serve your family, serve your friends, serve strangers, serve the ones who are hard to love. Look for opportunity to lift somebody else up. Pay attention to how that feels. And at the end of 2 weeks, I want you to ask yourself, which week truly made you feel fulfilled? Or if we're doing this podcast, which one made you feel happy? Which one made you overflow? I promise you the answer will surprise you. You know, adding more from the Harvard happiness expert, I listened to more of the podcast. And honestly, it went from bad to worse. He introduced something called VPIs, minimum vibration interventions. It's the idea that you can interrupt patterns of unhappiness with small actions. And again, these all sound good on the surface. Here are the examples. Spirituality, take a minute and do a breathing exercise. Physically, do like a 1-minute sprint or something. And intellectually, read a short excerpt from a quality book. And I think those are all great things to make you a more interesting person, maybe the most interesting person in the room. But let's be clear, those are not all good things. It's great to breathe, to move, and to read, but it completely misses the mark. Because the world's best happiness expert says to sprint, read, and breathe, that's it? Really? Wow, we're in trouble. And then the host says, well, what do you do every day? And he says, well, I meditate in the morning. So he empties his mind instead of filling it with godly wisdom. And then he reads quality stuff, I guess, because we didn't get told what. And then he takes his kids to school, and then he exercises. So empty your mind, take your kids to school. Okay, guys, fill your mind with the Prince of Peace, the source of joy, with abundance and gratitude and life's little instruction books of how to live a purpose-driven life of fulfillment and love and promise all the things you're searching for. Read quality stuff, he says. Okay, but like what? How about the Word of God? Maybe that's a good book. The Bible literally says, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. Well, that would be helpful information since it is the Prince of Peace, and that's what we're kind of seeking. And the last thing was to go pick up your kids. This is all the cornerstone of happiness, but here's the truth. The world is craving answers to deep, important questions about happiness and fulfillment, but we're looking to the world to give us answers. It simply cannot provide. The world can't provide the answers because it's not in the world. True joy comes from living a life aligned with God's design, not worldly advice. That only scratches the surface and can be dangerous. Here's why the worldly ideals of happiness fall short. They keep you focused on yourself, but God's wisdom, it flips it upside down. Acts 20:35 says, it is more blessed to give than to receive. I mean, could it be any more simple? How about this one? Philippians 2:3-4. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain or conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself, not looking at your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the other. That's the opposite. Luke 6:38. Given it will be given unto you, a good measure, pressed down, together, running over, poured into your lap. Let me just stop for a second. That means give it away and it'll come to you. Joy, happiness, abundant, overflowing. Isn't that the opposite of what we're being told? The world is saying, do what makes you happy. Me. Everything I've just said in the word says, serve others and God will send the rain. Stop chasing happiness and start living in fulfillment. Start attracting it to you by transforming your heart. Let's live the way God intended, because his ways lead to a life overflowing. Think about that. We're doing a podcast on how to not be unhappy. How about, where do I find the Prince of Peace? Where do I find my sense of joy and fulfillment and love? And how can I transform my heart when I feel bitterness and envy and jealousy and anger? I have two wolves inside of my head. One is gentle and kind, and the other is angry and resentful. And which one is going to win in my head? The worldly one or the godly one? And the answer, you know it. You've heard this before. The one you feed. Just because people have a repertoire of worldly science wisdom from tremendous universities, but if they got it in the world, it's going to lead you to a worldly end. So which one will you choose? Are you somebody who's been searching for happiness and seeking happiness and looking at all these scholars and going on all these podcasts and reading all these books and worldly wisdom? Well, if you're coming on another podcast, clearly it's not working. So I say, what do you have to lose? Do what you've always done, and you'll get what you've always gotten. Why don't you feed the one on the other side, the godly wisdom? Why don't you start gaining your wisdom from the one who created it all? So come on, launch your rocket, and we'll talk about these things. You will have a transformation of your heart, and you'll just walk around and you'll be peaceful and you'll have love. That doesn't mean you won't have good and bad times, but you'll have peace in all circumstances. So which one are you going to feed? Whichever one you feed is going to lead. Take the wisdom of God. Come on. All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad you were able to join me today.